Our top story then, in what is a first for the country, France's Justice Minister Éric Dupond-Moretti has been charged in a conflict of interest probe. Now, after facing tough questions in court this Friday, Dupond-Moretti was placed under formal investigation. Well, the question being asked is whether he abused his position as minister to settle scores with opponents from his legal career. Just a reminder then, the 60-year-old lawyer was hired by President Emmanuel Macron about a year ago now. He swapped his life at that time as a prominent criminal lawyer for a career in politics. Well, let's get you more on this. We can speak to our French political editor, Marc, who joins me in the studio. I mean, Marc, this is a complex issue, to say the least, one that needs to be fleshed out. It could go on for quite a while. What more do we know about this probe, about these charges levelled at Éric Dupond-Moretti?
Well, first of all, it's not a surprise because there had been a very thorough search of his offices just 2 weeks ago, and he had been asked to come today before the judges, and they had said that this would be to place him under formal investigation, and this is exactly what happened. Essentially, as you mentioned, Éric Dupond-Moretti is a famous criminal lawyer, and he was a vivid critic of judges and magistrates when he was a lawyer, and then suddenly he became justice minister, and some magistrate unions at the time said that this was a declaration of war against them by Emmanuel Macron to appoint Éric Dupond-Moretti. And so there have been complaints by some magistrate unions, NGOs, that essentially there was a conflict of interest, that Éric Dupond-Moretti, when he became justice minister, pushed investigations into the behavior of some magistrates, in some cases where he was involved as a lawyer. And so they're saying this is a conflict of interest. He's now the justice minister. He shouldn't have anything to do with some of cases where he was involved as a lawyer. He's been saying, those internal probes were launched by my predecessors, and there's no reason for me to stifle them or to stop them, because this would then be a problem. But clearly, the judges decided that that's not the case, that he's indeed pursuing a political vendetta against some magistrates. He's claiming they are pursuing a vendetta against him, but he's been placed under formal investigation. This means that there will be a thorough probe now into whether what he did was wrong or not, and at the end he could be sent before the Cour de Justice de la République, the only court that is judging ministers while they're serving, or he could be cleared. But this could take month and month and month, and the presidential election is only 9 months away.
Of course, yeah, I think you do well there to make reference to this event coming up, the presidential elections, which are very important. I mean, talk us through, Marc, if you're, how embarrassing this is likely to be for Emmanuel Macron. It's a probe, nothing is decided, but it's surely not going to sit well with the president. And I guess the question a lot of people will be asking, an official, a formal investigation opened, does Éric Dupond-Moretti stay in his job?
Well, the logic of things would be to say no, because there is a kind of line of precedence where if you had ministers who were either put under formal investigation or about to be put under formal investigation, and what did they do? They resigned, because this was deemed untenable. You couldn't be a minister and be put under formal investigation for political reasons, but just because you have to defend yourself. That's even more the case if you're the justice minister. That obviously is a problem. He will argue that this is not about a serious crime and so on. The image is terrible. And so the question is whether Emmanuel Macron will keep him in power. He's already said he would support him during this week's cabinet meeting, yesterday in front of the press, saying, he's not guilty, and there's a presumption of innocence, and this applies to him as well. But the pressure could be mounting, because Emmanuel Macron himself had said while he was campaigning before his election, a few months before, that in principle, if you're put under formal investigation, you have to resign. And let's not forget that his first justice minister, François Bayrou, was appointed, and there was a preliminary probe open into Mr. Bayrou's party finances, and he resigned because there was a preliminary probe open. And you compare this to his current justice minister being put under formal investigation, which is much more serious, then you see there is a problem. Emmanuel Macron hopes that this will not prevent him from keeping Éric Dupond-Moretti, who's one of the only stars and well-known minister of his government. But that remains to be seen. It will be very interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks. If the opposition decides to seize upon this issue, if the public opinion says, that's not acceptable, we'll have to see, because it's a very, very difficult situation for Emmanuel Macron and obviously for Éric Dupond-Moretti himself.
Well, absolutely. Will the president stand by his justice minister, or will he bend to the pressure? Remains to be seen. Thank you, though, now for Marc, our French politics editor.